successfully maintained to succeed spiritually. And for the horizontal relationship, hablu minan nas, the relationship we have with our fellow human beings has to be strongly established for us to succeed spiritually and materially. So I use the two for that. The horizontal relationship is there for us to succeed spiritually and materially, whereas the horizontal relationship is there for us to succeed spiritually, not materially, because that is connecting us to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not to the dunya, not to the fellow human beings and so on. Now the second reason why it is called Al-Quran is because according to the scholars, the Quran is a book of guidance that is very clearly stated, and I'll be mentioning some of the verses related to that kind of, objective of reading the Quran in order to be guided and so on. So every ayah of the Quran is actually guidance. Because every ayah is guidance, so the Quran and guidance are inseparable. What does it mean? There are many objectives of reading Al-Quran al-Karim. Some people read it for barakah. Some people, they read it for rahmah, to receive the rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some, they read it in order to safeguard themselves from certain evils. Evils that come from human beings and the jinns. As we all know, there is a belief that when you read Al-Quran in your house won't be disturbed by invisible. Yes, this is not unfounded. This is very true. The Quran keeps away the evil, invisible beings from homes where it is read. But it also protects a person from certain other evils that come from human beings and the jinns as well. This is one of the reasons why many people read Al-Quran al-Karim. But according to this reason, the reading of Al-Quran al-Karim should lead to guidance, because the Quran and guidance are inseparable based on the verses of the Quran. If you are reading the Quran with any objective other than guidance, then you are not fulfilling the objective of revealing it, which is to guide human beings. That is why it is called Al-Quran. And the next reason why it is called Al-Quran, this one is a karina, so that, combining the two things, the reading should be combined with guidance, and whatever other reasons you have should always lead you to guidance. So guidance should not be left out when the reasons why you read Al-Quran al-Karim. The second reason, which is again a karina, is to let us know that actually every ayah of the Quran is pointing to another ayah. It cannot be understood in isolation. You need to understand the other verses that are related to it, which means that the ayat of the Quran do not stand alone. That is one fact that we have to bear in mind, that there is no single ayah in the Quran which stands alone, because the ayat of the Quran do not stand alone. One has to continue reading the Quran in order to get complete guidance. This is the mistake the Jews did, to quote selected to the rest of the verses. أَتَأْخُذُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَتْرُكُونَ بِبَعْضِ. So this kind of condemnation of taking ba'dul kitab, some of the book, and leaving the rest, is there in the Quran. So what does it mean? It means that when you are to quote, don't quote just a part of the ayah. You have to quote the full ayah. This mistake is made by so many people who share information in the Facebook, that they take just one part of the ayah and post that. which distorts the meaning of the Quran. If you are not able to quote the complete ayah, then you don't quote, because then you'll be quoting what is favoring you, what is justifying what you want to say, when actually the ayah could be referring to other things as well. So you'll be confining the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when the scope is very wide. It is that kind of, attribute of the Quran that it is open-ended book without changing the message that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed. So that is again another reason why it is Al-Quran, in order to guide us on how to read it. So every ayah of the Quran is related to another ayah. It has a qarina, it has evidence somewhere else. It is an argument in response to a certain argument. It is a symbol that points at something else. So it is an in other verses of the entire Quran in his mind. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, the great companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, every one of us knows him. When he was asked to explain some of the verses of the Quran, he responded saying, "Ayyu sama'un tazilluni wa ayyu ardin taqilluni idha qultu fi kitabillahi ma la a'lam." Which skies will protect me from the anger of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and which land will contain my body if I say something regarding the book of Allah without knowledge. So it means that to talk about the Quran, one should be having the full picture of the message that has been revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not just knowledge regarding that verse without knowing other verses as well. So you need to be an expert. There are many people who have been misguided simply because people select some verses and they leave the rest of the verses. People take the ayat of azab, the ayat of punishments, and they disregard the ayat of rahmah, and they disregard the ayat of azab. This is the mistake done by the Khawarij. Al-Khawarij is one of the groups the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned in the hadith, although the Prophet did not live to see the Khawarij, to see the danger of the Khawarij, how destructive they were. The Khawarij prayed more than we pray. They fasted more than we fast. They read the Quran more than we read it. Yet they were not guided well. They were not guided rightly. Why? They used to take some ayat of the Quran and interpret them in isolation without referring to other verses of the Quran. And they applied the ayat which were revealed in reference to the kafirun. They applied Muslims on the believers, sending everybody else to hell. Kanajia, they were the only group that regarded itself to be, the saved one, the one which will be saved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As we know, the Prophet mentioned the 73 groups that will emerge, in the later days, and only one group will be on the right. That will be the group to enter Jannah, themselves to be that group, whereas the rest were not qualified to enter Jannah according to them. So we still have this kind of problem today. The problem of takfir, the problem of calling people kafir on the basis of ignorance. That is ignorance of the Quran, ignorance of the message of Al-Quran al-Karim,
to do takfir, which is to call others kafir, as if we have access to their him as a kafir. This includes the munafiqun. He did not, in the presence of anybody, that you are a munafiq. Neither did he mention to anybody that you are a kafir on the basis of your actions. The statement that we have, which is considered to be probably more comprehensive to explain, unpleasant situation, is innaka muribu fika jahiliya. He mentioned this statement in response to the action of Abu Dharr al-Ghifari. The story is known to many of you. When Abu Dharr al-Ghifari was not really happy with Bilal or the presence of Bilal, and he made a statement that was displeasing to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet said to him, "You are a person who still have jahiliyyah in you. You are still living in jahiliyyah, out of jahiliyyah completely." But say that your action is actually leading you to kufur. Today we easily place on the people, sending them to hell and disregarding them from being Muslims and so on. So the Quran has to be understood in its entirety. Another reason why it is called Al-Quran is because, according to the scholars, every harf, every letter, every alphabet of the Quran is connected to another alphabet. So every alphabet of the Quran is very significant, and it does not stand alone. It is connected to other alphabets in order to make what we call kalimat, words or concepts. And every concept does not stand alone. Every concept or every word of the Quran is connected to other words in order to create the ayat. And every ayat does not stand alone. So the collection of the ayat is what makes a surah, the chapters of the Quran. And every chapter of the Quran does not stand alone. So we get those chapters together in order to have what we call Al-Quran al-Karim. So what does it mean? It means that every letter of the Quran is very significant not to be left out in reading, because it is leading to the composition of a kalima, of a word. And every word of the Quran has to be read bearing in mind that it is connected to another word in order to create the ayah. And every ayah has to be read with that kind of knowledge that it is related to another ayah in order to compose what we call a surah, a chapter. And every chapter is also related to another chapter in order to have what we call Al-Quran. So in other words, we're talking about, integration, sort of, talking about things getting together, that the Quran is not a book that is separated, but it is one piece. It has to be understood as one piece, not in pieces and so on. So these reasons are very crucial when it comes to understanding the reasons why Al-Quran is a book of guidance, why Al-Quran al-Karim is other things that I'm going to mention later after this. Now let us look at these verses, which you see here. When we talk about Al-Quran, one must have understanding. And the objective of reading Al-Quran al-Karim is not just one objective, is more than one objective. So a collection of objectives has to be there. There are scholars who tell us that the entire Sharia is there as a rahmah. This is not refuted. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So being ar-Rahman ar-Rahim simply means that whatever comes from him is to be perceived as a rahmah. Whatever comes from Allah is to be perceived as a rahmah, because he is ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And he is al-Hadi. the one who guides. So whatever comes from Allah should be perceived as huda, as guidance, not as otherwise. He is a nur, he is the light. So whatever comes from Allah should be perceived as a nur, as light, not as darkness. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is al-alim, the all-knowing. So whatever comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be considered complete in terms of knowledge, because it comes from the one who is al-alim, the all-knowing. Alimul ghaibi wa shahada, the knower of the visible and invisible. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not leave out anything that is of importance to us among the visible and invisible realities unless he revealed it to us. If it is an invisible reality that is beneficial to us in our aqidah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed it in the Quran. So every name given to the Quran is also connected to the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in other words, if I'm to describe the Quran in one sentence, I will say the Quran is a manifestation of the sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His sifat are there in the Quran. You'll find them at the end of verses of the Quran. You'll find it also in the middle of some verses of the Quran. You'll find that also in the sentences of the Quran. So when you read the Quran in reference to the one who revealed it, you will know what the Quran is. When you read the Quran, disconnecting it from the one who revealed it, you'll not be able to achieve the objectives of revealing the Quran. Some scholars tell us that the only subject of the Quran is at-tawheed, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which means every ayah is leading to the belief in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because there is no any possibility for any human being, for a collection of all human beings and the jinns to replicate any verse of the Quran. This challenge remains until today. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala challenged the Arabs, the Quraysh at that time, to produce a Quran like the Quran that we have. And when he challenged them, the Quran was not yet completely revealed. So when he said Al-Quran, he was referring to the parts of the Quran that had already been revealed, not to the entire Quran, because the challenge came when the Prophet ﷺ was still in Makkah. And Allah never challenged the Arabs to produce a Quran that is similar to the Quran he has revealed after the Prophet's migration to Medina. We don't have any ayah that challenges the Arabs to produce any ayah that equals to the ayat of the Quran or similar to the ayat of the Quran. That challenge was when the Prophet ﷺ was still in Makkah before he migrated to Medina. But the challenge remains today for anybody who doesn't believe that this book is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to produce a verse that is similar to the verses of the Quran. Again, what is so special about the verses of the Quran that they cannot be replicated? That is a subject which we should get into some other time, because to get into that subject, we shall need a lot of time, but Allah willing, we shall give the reasons why it is not possible for any one of us to produce a similar verse. This is not just a matter of language. The Quran has been revealed in Arabic that is very different from the Arabic that is spoken by the Arabs, because it conveys a message that may be different from the literal meaning. And if you're going to rely on the literal meaning, you'll be missing the message. So the translations of the Quran are not sufficient to understand the message that has been revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially when we bear in mind that the Quran is huda linnas. Allah revealed the Quran as guidance to the human beings. to my knowledge, this concept huda in description of the Quran is the mostly mentioned concept in the Quran. The verses that point to the fact that the Quran is a huda are more than the ayat that point to other names which we are going to see later. I have not outlined all the verses of the Quran that mention that the Quran is revealed as guidance. Why? If I'm to do that, I have to quote the whole Quran. Why? Because every verse of the Quran is huda linnas. It's not just the verses that we have indicated here to point to the fact that the Quran is huda lil muttaqin or huda linnas, but every ayah of the Quran is huda linnas. There is no ayah in the Quran which is opposite to that reality. The Quran is not revealed to misguide people. It is revealed in order to guide people, right from the beginning to the end of it. So this is a reality, and that is why when we talk about knowledge in Islam, knowledge has to lead us to guidance. If knowledge does not lead us to guidance, then it is not considered useful. And money that is spent on knowledge which is not guidance is actually wasted, because all what we need is guidance. Why do we need guidance? Can't we lead our life without guidance from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? No, it is not possible for us to lead a life without guidance. Life requires guidance. Guidance on how to deal with the different conditions. When you are happy, you need guidance. How to manage your happiness. When you are sad, you need guidance on how to manage that condition. When you are troubled, you need guidance on how to go through the troubles. When you are to appreciate, we talked about the concept of shukr last week. You need guidance on how to appreciate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the way you appreciate Allah is not the way you appreciate me, is not the way you appreciate your parents. It's completely different. You need guidance on what to eat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a lot, but we are not to eat everything He has created. When we go to the hotels, we find a lot of food available. You may find, let's say, chicken cooked in different ways, beef cooked in different ways, rice cooked in different ways. Why they have the variety? They have the variety because there are people who may not like to take this and they prefer to take that. So you have a choice. They don't put all those things there for you to eat everything. If you're going to eat everything they place there, you'll end up, getting some trouble. So you just have to select not to take all and not to mix all, because certain things may not really, allow that kind of mixture. Instead of benefiting from the food, you are going to end up, getting poisoned, food poisoning, because of mixing the different food together. Now, because of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created a lot of food for us, but some food may not allow this kind of combination, that you combine this and that. And how to eat. When He commands us, He says, Ya ayyuhar rusulu kulu minat tayyibat wa amalu saliha minat tayyibat. Not everything which is a tayyib that we eat, but minat tayyibat, which is litabu'idu, some of it. So you be moderate in eating. This is guidance. We need guidance on everything. There is nothing that does not require guidance. That is why the Quran is a complete book of guidance. Nothing has been left out for those who want to be guided. This is another ayah that I have quoted again to indicate that the Quran is a book of guidance, but at the same time, وَرَحْمَةً وَبُشْرًا لِلْمُسْلِمِينَ. In addition to being a book of guidance, it is also a rahmah. Why is it a rahmah? How do we perceive the Quran as a rahmah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We know very well that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the basis of ar-Rahmah, he commands. And on the basis of ar-Rahmah, he forbids. And on the basis of ar-Rahmah, he punishes. On the basis of Rahmah, he appreciates. Every chapter of the Quran begins with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. But the one which does not begin with Basmala, Surah At-Tawbah, contains the biggest number of the concept of Tawbah. So if you check all the chapters of the Quran, the Tawbah concept has been mostly mentioned in Surah At-Tawbah. That's why they call it Tawbah. Tawbah, because it contains the most number of Tawbah, which is again a rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant chances to those who have wronged themselves. So the rahmah of Allah is seen in every situation. In the painful situation, you should see the rahmah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is why I say that instead of complaining, we should appreciate Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because when he puts you in that painful condition, it is on the basis of rahmah. He wants to appreciate, he wants to reward you, to give you a reward that you wouldn't get if you are not put in that condition. He wants to elevate you to the level where you wouldn't reach if he did not put you in that condition. He wants to tell you what is lacking in you. If you have any weakness to face a situation, he wants to highlight to you that yes, you have a weakness in you which needs to be fixed. That is why he puts you in that condition. He wants to humble you, because you may think that, well, I have succeeded. Ojo, self-admiration, what I have done is sufficient, is good enough. You may look down at others who may not have reached your level. But when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts you in a condition, it humbles you and brings you to the level where you wouldn't be if that condition was not created. So the concept of Rahmah is everywhere. So when you talk about guidance and Rahmah and Bushra, these three concepts are also mentioned in this ayah, because the Quran is to be perceived not only as a book of guidance, but as a Rahmah to the people, as a Bushra, good news. Rahmah also because, unlike the nations that came before us, which received also divine revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our Risala, the message that we have received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has considered the different situations in which we are. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has eased the duties for us in the different situations. When you are traveling, he has eased the duties for you. How you perform salah when you are traveling, that is made easy for you. When you are unwell, it is made easy for you on how to do it. That is why it is a rahmah. This is not found in the previous revelations. We don't have any reference in the Quran to point to the fact that the books revealed before Al-Quran al-Karim were actually a rahmah. Only the Quran is described as a rahmah wa bushra lil muslimin. The Quran is there to give good tidings to those people who are obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those who do good, those who show obedience in every situation. But at the same time, it is a nazir. It is a warning to those people who are not complying, those who are disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is another verse. It is huda, but also mau'izah lil muttaqin. It is admonition to those people who have taqwa. Why mau'izah? Yes, we need mau'izah. Every human being, you need to be admonished. We go to the masjid, not just to perform salah, but to be admonished. Why? We need that kind of guidance every day. The khutbatul Jummah is very important because it is a mau'izah lil muttaqin. When you miss it out, you have missed out something very significant. So it is not just the Salah. Salah is something that you can always perform at home. Right now, many of us may not have a chance to pray in the masjid because of the number that is still limited, but we can always pray at home. There's one thing that you cannot get, the khutbah. If you don't listen to that khutbah, you will not get it because the mau'izah is there in the masjid. Because of that, the masajid have the mawa'iz, these kind of, admonitions on a daily basis. So the Quran is also that, meaning that there's no any mau'izah better than the Quran itself. This is another verse again to explain that the Quran is a Huda and Rahmah at the same time. We come to another objective of reading Al-Quran al-Karim, and this is a very important one. When we approach the Quran, we should approach it with the intention of receiving light from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why? Because Allah is an-Nur. It is not sufficient for us to depend on the light of the sun, because the light of the sun is showing you the makhluqat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah's creation, khalqullah, without which we wouldn't be able to see what Allah has created. But Al-Quran al-Karim is the light that you need inside your heart. The light that, when you talk about light again, we also talk about enlightenment. We talk about illumination. Many scholars describe knowledge as enlightenment. Knowledge is enlightenment. So the Quran being a nur simply means it is a book of knowledge. Not every knowledge is light. There are some knowledge that is not considered light, but all the knowledge that you get from the Quran is light. It can never be the opposite of that. Just as I did mention, what comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be explained on the basis of his sifat. That statement is very important. So we explain and describe the Quran on the basis of this sifa of Allah, which is an-nur, the light. So being a light, it enlightens us. It takes us from the darknesses, Jahiliyyah, the darknesses. We know that the Quran was revealed at a time when human beings were in darkness, and it delivered some of them from that darkness into light. So there was a transformation. It transformed the lives of the people, which wouldn't be transformed if not because of this revelation. And the Quran remains there to lead us to that, to transform our lives, to take us out of darkness, the darkness that is in our mind, the jahl, ignorance, kibur, arrogance, envy, jealousy, hatred, and so many diseases. All these, when they come together, they create a darkness in the hearts of the people. So when the Quran is described as shifa, healing, a book that is healing, it simply means that it takes you out of the darkness. We are suffering from those darknesses of the evil thoughts, the darkness of envy, the darkness of injustices, the darknesses of tyranny, the injustices, and so on. You can mention whatever you want to mention here, whether it is kufr is regarded as darkness. Whatever kind of evils, they are described as darkness. That is why the concept is zulum in the Quran. When you read carefully the Quran, something interesting about it is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the concept nur always in the singular form, and he uses zulum in the plural form in many places. Zulmat, meaning darknesses. Whereas when it comes to nur, it doesn't say anwar, He says nur, light, in the singular form. Why? I'll give the reasons why. I prepared the reasons why the concept nur is used in the singular form and zulum is used in the plural form in many verses of the Quran. I don't want to get into it right now. But what I want to say to you is that in this verse, the concept zulum is used in the plural form and nur in the singular form. Why? Because when we talk about injustice, there are so many injustices, whereas justice is always one. Justice is one, the truth is one, but falsehood can be many. So when you talk about zulumat, it simply means that every evil, whatever evil you may think about, the Quran is there to take you away from that evil, to lead you to a nur, which is just one, the guidance. We don't have two guidance. Guidance is always one. That is one of the objective of the Quran. I cannot be on the truth when I'm following this way and you're following a different way and you're also on the truth. Somebody may say, how about the mazahib? We do different things according to the mazahib. Doesn't that mean that we are actually taking different ways to the truth? Yes, we are taking different approaches, but the objective is the same, which is aiming at the same truth. None of the four imams intended falsehood. Each one of them intended the truth. They did their ijtihad in order to arrive at the truth, not to arrive at the opposite of the truth. So we may have different approaches, but our objective is a nur, to be led to light, and there's only one light, whereas the approaches, other approaches are leading to zulmat, subul. Even Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he describes those ways, he calls them subul. And he says, وَلَا تَتَّبِعُوا السُّبُلَ فَتَفَرَّقَ بِكُمْ عَنْ سَبِيلِهِ. Do not follow the pathways, because then you'll be led away from the right path. So the Quran is the light. It is the only light that we need when we are in darkness. When you have the Quran, you are assured of the light, but that means that you need to really understand its message in order to know how it is a light for you in the different conditions. So this is again another objective of reading the Quran, to be delivered from darknesses. And every day we find ourselves in darknesses. When we commit a wrongdoing, we don't commit it once. We continue to commit the same mistake, despite the promises we make. We promise Allah that I will never repeat this mistake, but you find yourself repeating the same mistake. So when you repeat that mistake, what do you need? You need the light to get out of that condition. And that is the Quran. When you read it, you are enlightened. So to conclude on this point, one who does not read Al-Quran, who is not guided by the Quran, is not actually enlightened. And when we talk about civilization as enlightenment, then any civilization which is not founded on the Quran should not be called enlightenment. You can call it civilization, but you should not call it enlightenment. It is not illumination. Any knowledge that is not Quran-based is not illumination. It is illumination when it is Quran-based. A civilization is enlightenment when it is Quran-based. So the best concepts to use to refer to this ummah or to describe the ummah is actually enlightenment and illumination, because the concept of civilization itself has got many meanings, as I will mention later. Why civilization? Because knowledge is leading to civilization, and knowledge is also called civilization. Civilization is also called knowledge.
We are losing Prof. Okay, Prof.
Again, so there was a disconnection again.
Okay.
We have to say Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is praised for every condition. Probably there is a reason why the disconnection happened. Maybe for us to focus more on some of the issues. Al-Quran is a tibyan. Tibyan means the explanation of all. There is nothing that is considered fundamental unless it has a detailed explanation in the Quran as a book of knowledge. All the details that you need about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you find them in Al-Quran al-Karim. All the details you need about yourself, you find them in Al-Quran al-Karim. All the details you need about life, you find them in Al-Quran al-Karim. All the detail you need regarding the purpose of life, you find them in Al-Quran al-Karim. So it is a tibyan, and it should be read with that in mind, that what I'm reading is the tibyan. I only need to know where to find that guidance. If you have failed to find the guidance you need, then fas'al ahla zikr. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, fas'alu ahla zikri in kuntum la ta'lamun. Ask the people of knowledge if you fail to know when you do not know. They will guide you on where to find the reference to whatever kind of situation. So as we are running out of time, we need to again get into some other issues here. It is al-hukum, the judgment. Why the judgment? Because the Quran itself is revealed for us to base upon to pass judgments. So whatever judgment that is passed without basing it on the Quran may lead to some injustices, because the Quran itself is the only book that is described as al-hukum. And those who do not take it as al-hukum, Allah has described them as the kafirun, the zalimun, and the fasiqun. So it is a duty upon every one of us to take the Quran as al-hukum. And when the hukum is passed in the Quran, we just have to surrender to the hukum, even if it is against us. We just have to have the rida, and we move on, even if you are not pleased. It is al-furqan. It is the criterion for knowing the good and the wrong. Again, all that is in the Quran. And this seems to be the last description of the Quran that I have with me here. But to conclude on this topic, we have the Hadith as a book of knowledge as well as inspiration. Just as I did mention in the beginning, Hadith does not stand alone. That the Quran stands alone. The Quran is in need of the Hadith. If you want to call it Sunnah, is up to you. So the Quran is in need of the Sunnah, and the Sunnah is in need of the Quran. Why I say the Sunnah? Because the Quran needs elaboration, and that elaboration is in the Hadith. The Quran, certain things in the Quran need demonstration, and that demonstration is in the Hadith, or call it the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Certain things in the Quran need explanation, especially when it comes to certain concepts. what is the meaning of amana, what is the meaning of being Khalifa, that explanation is in the hadith. So when you don't refer to the hadith, you don't get the explanation of the Quran. When you don't refer to the hadith, you don't get the demonstration on certain things, especially Salah, Hajj, and other things. When you don't refer to the hadith, you will not be able to, again, know how to deal with certain ayat of the Quran. So the hadith is there to further explain to us what the Quran has said. وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ. The tafsir said that the zikr, which is mentioned firstly, is referring to the Quran. It is a reminder. So that is another name of the Quran. Another reason of reading the Quran is to be reminded, because it is a zikr, the reminder. But لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ, some scholars say, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ refers to the Sunnah. I would say a-zikr refers to both Al-Quran and As-Sunnah. How does it refer to the Quran? وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ means every ayah of the Quran is an interpretation of the ayah that has been revealed before. لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ. So the best tafsir is tafsirul Quran bil Quran. Interpreting the Quran with the Quran is safe. The second tafsir that is next to that is the tafsirul Quran bis Sunnah. Describing the Quran on the basis of the Sunnah. That is the second tafsir. Or understanding the Quran in the light of the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, or in the light of the Hadith. And the third tafsir is the tafsir bil-ra'i or ta'wil, which is actually interpretations. The ta'wilat are too many. These are the ijtihadat of the scholars. So their opinion, that is the third category of the interpretation of Al-Quran al-Karim. Now, وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الذِّكْرَ لِتُبَيِّنَ لِلنَّاسِ مَا نُزِّلَ إِلَيْهِمْ simply means the Quran is an explanation of the Quran itself, but at the same time, the Sunnah of the Prophet or his Hadith is an explanation of the Quran. So both books are equally important, Al-Quran was Sunnah, and we should ensure that our homes do not contain just the Al-Quran, but also the Sunnah of the Prophet. The Hadith of the Prophet should be seen on the shelves in our homes in the same way we see Al-Quran al-Karim, so that the two books remain the twin foundation of knowledge and the twin foundation of Islam. I'll be elaborating more, inshallah, on some of those issues in the lessons to come. I thank you very much for your attention. Wa jazakumullahu khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alaikum salam. Let's take a quick question from Brother Nasiru.
Okay.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Prof.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thanks for the presentation. Jazakumullah khair. Please, I want you to say more about a verse of the Holy Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was saying, لا إكراه أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم لا إكراه في الدين قد تبين الرشد من الغي ومن يكفر بالطاغوت ويؤمن بالله فقد استمسك بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله سميع عليم. الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياؤهم الطاغوت يخرجونه من النور إلى الظلمات أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون. Please, I want you to say more about this, because that rushd wal ghayy, and where Allah talked about volumat wa nur, like you were about saying the other time, unfortunately, maybe because of time, you just stopped along the way. So I want you to say little things about these two verses as regard the explanation about Quran and the as the light, and a kind of what takes us away from what darkness or darknesses. Thank you very much.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, brother. In regard to this ayah, actually, this ayah is also a very important reference. When you talk about the Quran as being a huda, guidance that has been revealed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the ayah tells us that actually it is Allah who delivers the people from the darknesses, not anyone else. What does it mean? It means that to get out of kufr is not possible without Allah's will and permission. One may be very intelligent and is considered to be the most intelligent person. If Allah does not permit that he gets out of kufr, he cannot go out of kufr. We have scientists who reached a level where we may not reach in terms of discoveries, yet they were not guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He did not take them out of the zulumat. We have people who do not doubt that the Quran is a divine book, and there is no book that is similar to the Quran. We have listened a lot to those presentations by certain individuals in the time in which we live, yet those individuals are not Muslims. They have never opposed Islam. They are in support of the fact that the Quran is a book of guidance. So it is Allah who is waliyul ladhina amanu. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who delivers those who believe, which means one of the first steps that we need to take in order to be delivered from darkness is to believe that this is a book from Allah. Without that belief, it is not possible to get out of the darkness. Why? What has made people disbelieve is actually arrogance. They just do not want to believe. Kufur is based on arrogance, nothing else. If arrogance is to be eliminated from the mind of the people, they will all believe in the revelation. But because of that arrogance in their mind, they have failed to believe. So that is why Allah says, Alladhina amanu. The first step you need to take is to believe, to acknowledge that this is a message from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why he says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. To begin, that you need to acknowledge the fact that this Quran is from Allah, it contains no doubt. Then you will be led to the guidance. But for the disbelievers, their awliya are not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And anyone who, to take a word other than Allah means to be taken out of the light into darkness. What kind of light is that? Kullu mawlud yuladu ala al-fitra. Every one of us is born in a state of light. Yes, there is a light in which we are born. The consciousness that we have, our mind, that knowledge which is inborn leads us to the guidance that we attain in life, if one is guided well from small. That is why you see the children of Muslims grow up as Muslims, and the children of non-Muslims, they grow up as non-Muslims because they are not guided. So for abawahu yuhawidanihi aw yunasirani. So if the parents happen to be non-believers, they will take a person out of the enlightenment into the darkness of ignorance and so on. So the ayah is about that. So delivering people from darkness into light, or from light into the darkness. And who is delivering them from light into darkness? Human beings, not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah does not deliver anybody from light into darkness. What he does is to deliver people from darkness into light, because there is no sifa of Allah to describe him as one who does deliver people from light into darkness. So the dalal come from other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whereas the huda comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the message that is actually conveyed in that ayah. There's no any better statement for me to explain that ayah other than saying that the ayah is telling us that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala delivers the people from darkness into light and not from light into darkness. But other than Allah, they deliver people from light into darkness, which means they misguide them. Wallahu a'lam.
Thank you so much, Prof. There are a few questions, important one in the chat. I'll forward to you. Maybe next week you can highlight like issue of disbelievers, fabrication of Quran, and so on and so forth. Our time is up. I will see you next week, inshallah, and see everyone again tonight, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.